Okay, so hello. Pretend you didn't see Dubai 2008 there. This is a presentation about some of the Webmaster tools that are available at your disposal. We have, obviously, a pretty big search engine. We crawl a lot of pages every day. And some of those pages might be your websites. I know Ahmed asked at the beginning how many people have websites, but I was sitting behind a pillar, so I missed it. So how many people have a website? Okay, good. So all of you will get something out of this. All of you who don't yet have a website, get one, and then you'll get something out of this too. Now, the time that I've got to present has been cut into a little bit, and I understand that one of my problems, like Husni, is that I'll speak quicker and quicker and quicker. So rather than try and tear through the content, I'm just going to skip a few slides. But we'll put the presentation online afterwards, and you'll be able to download it and browse it at your pleasure. Okay? So, understanding search. This is our mission, to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. What does that mean? We want to get all of the information that's out there, not just web pages, and deliver them to you no matter how you're accessing them. So whether it's on mobile, whether it's through a PC, whether it's through some future device that hasn't been invented yet, that shouldn't matter. We should just be able to have content and deliver it to you and answer your question, no matter where that's coming from. Fortunately, Husni's already covered this one, so that's paid, that's free. Moving on. Here are some online trends. Every day, 100 million videos are served online. There's some other stuff here, but actually, this is probably the most interesting statistic. Up to a quarter of the web is brand new every time we crawl it. And we crawl it once a month. So every month, the web is 25% bigger, which is an interesting challenge. And we'll have a look at some of the ways we solve that. This looks scary, but don't worry. This is what happens when we crawl the web. This is the kind of three-spot process for getting into Google. So first of all, we go and crawl the web. We look at all the URLs out there, we follow links, and we try and find web pages. Then we calculate PageRank, and I'll talk a bit more in detail about how we do that. But basically, that's how we decide which pages should appear where. And then we build the index. So once we've worked out what rank a page should have, and we know which words are on a page, when you plug in a query, we know which pages to return. It's pretty straightforward, or at least we try to make it straightforward. We're downloading an entire copy of the internet every month, if we can. We try to download as much as we can. And we're becoming more intelligent about it too. We're understanding more and more content that isn't web pages, things like Flash and video and audio. And we're letting webmasters control how we access their sites a lot more too. Some people have bits of their site that they don't want exposed to the whole world. Some people have paid services that they don't want people to have access to without first paying. So we need to put mechanisms in place to allow people to control that. Building the index is a bit like the index of a book. We look at a web page, we remove what we call stop words, so things like the, a, and, at, of, words that people don't really search for. And we're left with a list of words that are on a page. And so all we do is say this word, these pages, this word, these pages. Pretty straightforward. Then we have to rank them. And this is where things get a little bit more interesting. PageRank is essentially voting for your site, other people voting for your site. So whenever you get a link to your website from somewhere else on the internet, that's going to increase your PageRank. How much will it increase it? Well, it depends on what the site is. So a big site like golfnews.com, edgynews.com, BBC, someone like that linking to you, that's going to be a really big vote of confidence. If my blog, which me and only my mother read, if I link to your website, that's a little vote, but it's a vote nonetheless. So everything is useful. There's no such thing as a bad link. And how do we rank it? So PageRank is kind of the key signal. That's the biggest indicator that we have, but there's over 200 signals that we use in total. And that's part of what makes Google special. It's the secret sauce, if you will. And obviously, we don't reveal those. And the way I think of it, actually, those variables change all the time. I like to imagine there's a big wall out in America with lots of dials on it that you can turn like this. And each dial does something, but it doesn't have a label. And every day, the engineers wake up and they turn 5 dials randomly to see how things change. And they'll expose that change to a small percentage of our users. And so that small percentage of our users will then be measured against the baseline. And if those users now find what they're looking for more quickly, if they're getting better results, then that test will be applied to everyone. And then we'll start testing again. And at any time, we've got anything between 10 and 100 tests going on. So we're always trying out new things. We never stop innovating. We want to make sure that search is always as relevant as possible. So the goals of ranking. We've seen that 10 to 25% of the web is new each time we crawl it, but also 25% of queries haven't been seen in the last 3 months. I'm afraid I don't know many Arabic holidays, but Christmas, for example, is pretty big to me. Lots of people in the build-up to Christmas are searching for things like Christmas presents for the wife, good Christmas presents for the wife. But, you know, come March, no one's searching for Christmas anymore. And they won't be really searching for Christmas until November, December comes around again. So we also have to think about things like that. You know, when words aren't being searched for, we don't need to index that type of content so frequently. This is what happens to a user. So the average person sitting behind a computer or a mobile phone, they run their query. So we work out where in the world they are, route them to a data center nearby, fan the query out to lots of different machines. Have a look, each of the machines has a look at their little bit of the index and return some documents. Then we group all the documents back together and present the results to the user. Now this looks like a pretty complicated task, but you'll see when you search on Google in the very top right, or I guess in Arabic on the top left, the time that it's taken to do that query. And we try to keep it less than 1/4 of a second. So in 1/4 of a second, you're going out and getting information from a lot of our machines, potentially in a lot of different locations, and they're being delivered back to you seamlessly. And that's one of the real advantages we have, it's speed. And in fact, it's something that you should take note of too. We've done a lot of experiments. We experiment with different ranking signals, but we also experiment with how long it takes to return a query. And we've seen even if we reduce it by a very small fraction of a second, somehow users are able to notice that. And they won't use the service as much. There'll be less traction because, you know, 1/5 of a second is obviously important to people. They can tell. So you've got a website, or you're thinking about building a website. What do you do? Well, okay, first of all, can your site's pages be found by Google? What this means is, are you linked from at least one other place on the internet? If you're not, do that first, because without that, you're simply not going to get in the index. It's that simple. Can your site's URLs be indexed? What this means is, are they easy for us to understand, or are they really complicated? And we'll have a look at some examples of that in a minute. Is the content useful? This is probably the message that's the most important message of all, and I'm going to say it 3 or 4 times over the next 10, 15 minutes, so I apologize. But when a user types a query into a search engine, they are typing a word that's useful to them. So they want, I don't know, a cheap DVD player, right? If your website says, we provide ultimate DVD solutions for consumers, no one is going to search on that. No one puts in ultimate DVD for consumers. They put cheap DVD player. And if your site doesn't say cheap DVD player, you're not going to appear for the search. It's that simple. There are lots of people, and I apologize to anyone here in marketing or branding, but there are lots of people in marketing and branding who want to get the company's mission statement. You know, that's the most important thing. It's got to be foremost. And it's good. You've got to have it. Well, you don't have to have a mission statement, but it's nice to have a mission statement, something to work towards. But generally, the messages that the marketing and brand people are thinking probably aren't the same as those that real users are actually searching for. So if you need to have both sets of content on the site, that's fine. But make sure the moment you start writing content for your website, you're thinking about how you would search for that page. And if the terms that you would put in to look for that page aren't on there, you're doing something wrong. Fix it. There are some Webmaster guidelines that are available at google.com/webmasters. They're also available in Arabic. You'll see the pages look ever so slightly different, but the content is largely the same. I'm going to have to guess that, because unfortunately I don't read Arabic. But I'm going to summarize some of them for you here. Parameters. Probably most of you aren't that technical, but I'm pretty sure you'll have seen URLs that look like this and URLs that look like this. This is better, because it's easy for us to understand. If you can't read this at the back, it says google.com/search Q = Ramallah. From that, pretty much anyone can look at that URL. Anyone in this room could look at it and guess that it's a URL for a search of Ramallah. This is a Google Maps result. And this is maps.com, maps, F = Q, and HL = N, and geocode = and Q = Ramallah, and you kind of look at that, and I look at that, and I'm technical, and go, what? It means nothing. So for a search engine to index that is fine, but for a user to see that, they're going to be a little bit scared off. So where you can simplify your URLs, do so. And if you can get text into them, that's going to help too, because if someone can actually read a URL and see this page is about my product, they're more likely to click on it, as opposed to, you know, page, template, ID = 784C. Site structure. This is another really important thing. Make sure that your site isn't isolated, or parts of your site aren't isolated. Make sure every page links both to and from at least one other page, and that you can click through your entire site without having to type in a URL. If you can't do that, then chances are we can't find parts of your content. Site structure, redirects. Those of you who use Facebook or Gmail or any service where you have to log in will be aware of that. You know, you hit the enter password button, and you'll see at the bottom of the browser it's ticking and it's picking new pages, and it's like contacting, waiting, and that can go on for ages and ages and ages. And what might happen is your website's been around a couple of years and you've made some changes, and now you've actually got a string of 7 or 8 redirects. And you do this in the office, and the computers are close to you, and the response comes back in a quarter of a second, and you think nothing of it, and you're like, oh, web servers are fine. A user out there who isn't close to your office and is clicking this button and has got to wait 7 or 8 times for the round trip of, you know, from the UK to a data center in the Middle East and back again, and then the same and the same and the same, that could be a few seconds. And I don't know about you guys, but if I have to wait more than 3 seconds for a page to load, I'm gone. I'm looking elsewhere. It might not be, I might be kind of extreme in that. 3 seconds is pretty short, but certainly my mum has a low tolerance for this stuff too. She's, oh, I hate waiting for the internet. It's so boring. That's the sort of thing I get from her. So again, it has to be fast. If it's not fast, users aren't going to engage. Titles and snippets. So I've said this already, but I'll say it again. Think not just what the brand manager says, but also how users search, and make sure those words are on your page. Titles and snippets. So when you do a search, this is what it looks like on the search results page. This is the title of the page. These are what we call snippets, and this is the URL. And so the URL is visible, and that's why we like to have a nice, clean, easy to understand URL. The title should be relevant to the page itself. And this is, again, key. I cannot tell you the number of big corporations I've spoken to who have one title across their entire site. And if a user search for something really specific, and they've got to the page they want, but the title just says, you know, generic company, then they're not going to be engaged to click. You should think of this as a call to action. You should think of this as trying to catch someone's attention and getting them to click. Don't put click me, because that's going to have just as bad an effect. But put something that's going to engage the user based on their search. The snippets we select from the page itself based on the query that's come in. So if you've searched here for, I guess, Stanford Arts, Stanford Lively Arts, you'll see that arts and lively arts are in bold. And we've selected text from the page that are close to those terms, so hopefully people get a decent preview. So again, it's really important to make those terms match and make it human readable, because this is the impression people are getting of your site, and this is going to determine whether or not they click. Check your site using a text browser such as Links. Now this probably won't be such a problem for you guys, but it's not uncommon for people to have a lot of flash or a lot of rich content on their web page. And there's something called Links, the Links viewer, that you can have a look at, and it'll show you how the Googlebot sees your website. And basically, you want to make sure that the information that's important is readable on this page. If you search Google for Links Viewer, you'll find a few tools that let you do this. The other thing is images. Googlebot can't read images. It knows that an image is there, but it doesn't really know what's in the image. So it's really, really important to tell us what the image is about. There's something called an alt tag that you can attach to an image. And in this case, you can describe what that image is about. So here, you could say, picture of Stanford University Library, because that's what it is. You don't have to put, you know, 2 boys and a girl leaning over a book at a table with some books behind them, because that's not really what the page is about. But at the same time, don't lie about the content. Just be honest. If it's someone running through a field, you could say, our product set you free. You don't have to put, you know, man with no shoes running through field, jumping in air. It doesn't have to be that explicit. So, hot topics. Geolocalization. This is one of my favorite searches for goats. Goats always make me laugh. If you do a search for goats on google.com, this video will come up, and it's goats that faint when you shout at them. It makes me laugh every single time. This is what happens when you search in Arabic, or on google.ae for goats. And you'll see it's some of the same results, and you've got the same video results. But where here, you've got the British Goat Society, because I'm searching on google.co.uk, here, you'll see that it won't appear. And in fact, if I do the search in Arabic, using Google Translate, so I hope that is actually goats, and I'm guessing it is from the pictures, you can see that most Arabic people are looking for pictures of goats. I don't know why, when they do goat searches. And actually, this thing is really scary. I don't know what it is. If anyone can tell me, please come and see me afterwards. Oh, yeah, exactly. Selling goats online. So, okay, and as you'll have seen here, we've got images blended in. On here, we've got videos blended in. And this leads us on to universal search. Universal search is this idea that we haven't just got web content. We've got great maps content. We've got great images. We've got blogs. We've got news. We've got videos. And what we're trying to do is return a result that's relevant to the user. So when I do a search for goat in the UK, videos are obviously what people are looking for. In Arabic countries, they're looking for pictures. Perhaps in France, they don't want anything. They just want web results, or perhaps they want news. And what we'll do is learn over time what type of content for what type of search has the best results and make sure that that's delivered. And so what you'll find is if no one clicks on a YouTube result for a long time, it'll slowly disappear from the results because it's obviously not relevant. Flash. This is, we've touched on this already, but this is a Disney page for My Little Mermaid. This is their website. This is what Google sees. Nothing. Because it's all Flash, it's rich content. We don't really understand it. It's basically like an image to us. So if you're creating Flash content, think like YouTube. This is YouTube. This is Kurtacek, who's a little Czech mole, of all things. And this bit here is the only part of Flash content on the website, the video itself. Everything else, the stuff with the red boxes around it now, that's HTML. It's plain text. We're able to extract that information and understand it. So we can really derive meaning from this page without having to understand the video. If the whole page was presented in Flash, we'd have a much harder time, and so probably wouldn't be able to index it effectively. Flash is really good, it's great, it should be used. YouTube, YouTube's success is almost entirely due to Flash. So don't underestimate it, but use it sparingly. And think before you deploy it, is it really necessary? There's a way to control what we crawl as well, Robotstxt. This allows you to put a file on your website and simply list files or directories or types of files that you don't want us to index. Maybe you've got a lot of PowerPoint files, maybe you've got a lot of log files that you don't want us to index, maybe there's a directory you don't want us to look at. You can tell us, and there are instructions online for how to do that. There are also some resources available to you. And so I'm running a little bit out of time, so I'm going to start speeding up and skipping things here. But there is a tool called Google Webmaster Tools. And rather than show you some boring slides, it's probably better to show you a live example. There are the goats. Okay, this is my Google Webmaster account. Can you guys all see that at the back okay? A little bit? It's all right, I'm going to explain what you're looking at, but as long as you can see a little bit. So this is information for my blog. And I've registered my blog here. And this is information for the last week. Has this thing got a little pointer? Yeah, there we go. Okay, so 1 week ago. And I play quite a lot of computer games in my spare time, and there's a game called Fallout 3 that I've been playing quite a lot, and I was writing about the music. And you can see lots of other people are playing it, and they're searching for Fallout 3 music, and they've seen my blog, and that's responsible for 60% of the searches for my website. I also wrote an article about getting information off an SD card for Android, because it was really frustrating, and apparently lots of other people found that frustrating too. So you can see here, there's been a lot of searches for that. Now, my blog is pretty badly written and pretty badly optimized. Like I said, it's just me and my mum who read it. So you'll see I get a lot of people results popping up. I appear on the search results quite a lot, but I get very few clicks. So this is the difference. This is when I'm getting impressions. This is when my website's actually appearing on Google, and this is when people are clicking through. And you can learn a lot here, because you might be appearing, like if this was actually my business, you might be appearing for all these queries, but not getting clicks, and you want to think, why is that happening? So go and do the search for these terms and find out what your page looks like and see if the snippet and the title and the information that you're seeing are really, really compelling. And if they're not, update those pages, make them more compelling, and generate those clicks. Okay, we were talking about my website that only my mother and I read. So we have got, you can see here that I'm getting a lot of impressions, but I'm not getting clicks. So do use this information to find out why you're getting all these impressions, but you're not actually seeing clicks through. Now, we're really running out of time, so I'm only going to show one more thing and then rip through the next presentation. But statistics. They keep moving things around, and there are all these different stats. Here we go. Now, as a geek, graphs really, really please me. There's not geeks out here, and I can see a few people from yesterday, so I'm happy to see there are some geeks in the audience. But even not as a geek, these graphs should be really, really important to you. This one in particular. The top one tells you how many times a day, on average, Google is coming to visit your site. And depending on the size of your site, that should give you an idea of how often we're refreshing our content and refreshing our looking refreshing our view of your website. The middle one is super geeky, don't worry about that. That's just the amount of data transferred. But this bottom one is absolutely key. You'll see here the time spent downloading a page in milliseconds. Now milliseconds are 1,000, there are 1,000 of them in a second. So when you see this number here, 2,700 milliseconds, that means it's taking 2.5 or 2.7 seconds for Google to download my page. And Google's pretty fast at downloading stuff. So if Google's taking 2.7 seconds, how long is the average user taking? And this should be an indication that maybe it's time to think about upgrading my computers. Actually, with an average of only 679, it's not such a problem. But if this average starts creeping up towards 3,000, you need to look at buying new machines or you're going to be losing users. Now, let's go back to the presentation. There are lots of other features available in Webmaster Tools. Normally I'd spend another 20 minutes talking about them, but we don't have time. So you're going to have to believe me. We've got this, 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 this. So there's a huge amount of information in there for you to use, access, and understand. Okay? Unfortunately, you'll see next to each section a little question mark, except on this page, really annoyingly. But you can always go to the Google Help Center. Click on Help here. It'll open a new window, and it'll take you to the Webmaster Help Center. And when I was over there and I shouted at Ahmed earlier about the website that has Translate built right in, it's actually this one. So I can go here and select what I hope is Arabic, and I'll actually be able to see this site using Google Translate translated. And what we've done actually is cheat a little bit. We've used Google Translate most of the time, but where we've had reports that it's really bad, we've gone in and manually tweaked them. But that's, that's why Translate's a powerful tool. It can do most of the legwork for you. Okay, that being said, that's all there is to say on search right now. So we will have some questions and answers later. But there's a whole other section, Website Optimizer and Google Analytics. And we've got about 10 minutes to go through this. So rather than bore you with PowerPoint slides, I'm going to show you a very quick example of my analytics site. Now again, if you saw Ahmed's presentation earlier, you'll have seen that with most of our services, we want to make it as easy for you as possible to implement these services. So with YouTube, all you have to do is cut and paste a bit of code onto your website. For putting a map onto your website, it's the same. For putting the translate tools onto your website, we want you to just be able to cut and paste code. You don't have to be a genius to do this. I'm one of the few people at Google who really isn't a genius, and I can do this, so it must be pretty easy. But this is my analytics page, and what you do is cut and paste a little bit of code into a common element on your web page, be it the header or the footer or the navigation or something like that. And it's the same bit of code for every page, so you only need to do that once, and it'll take you no more than 5 minutes. And once you've done that, all this information will start rolling in. And here's some of the information that there is. This is the dashboard for my Google Analytics account. And you can see here, this is roughly, and this is for my blog, and I was serious when I said only my mum and I read it. There's 15 visits a day at peak. 134 visits a month, woo! But you can see here, there's a map. This is where people are coming from. Strangely, I get quite a lot of hits from America, but again, mostly my mum and me from England. Visitors overview, you've got a timeline here. And where's my traffic coming from? It's coming from, mostly, as I'd expect, search engines. So I get a little pie chart here. 99%, in fact, so this pie chart isn't quite accurate. 99%, or 75%, sorry, of my traffic is coming from search engines. 15%, I don't know why I'm pointing with the laser when I can use my finger. 15% is from referring sites. So that's other people linking from elsewhere on the net. And about 12% is direct traffic. And that's people who know my URL, which is probably me, just typing in the URL to find out if the site's still there. As you get more traffic to your site, you'll see that people do start to learn the website address, and they'll bookmark it, or they'll remember it and type it in directly and visit. But lots of people will still use Google. One of the most common search terms month on Google is Google. People go to Google, search for Google, and click Google. And I still don't really understand why, but it happens a lot. So within analytics, you've got a huge amount of data. And you'll see here, the most popular keywords that I've had for referrals over the last month is Fallout 3 music. So that tallies with the information that we were seeing in Webmaster Tools. And actually, the data starts to get so small. I mean, 5 clicks, 3 clicks. That's when the Webmaster Tools will stop recording it, because it's just not worth recording data that small. But analytics will pick it up, because it's tracking every single visitor to your site and seeing how they come through. And again, I don't have time to show you all these reports, so what I'm going to do is tear through this very quickly and stop on some of the interesting ones. This is kind of cool if you're a geek. How many people are geeks? Very few. Okay, we'll skip this. It's not that cool. Reporting. There are basically 5 main navigation categories. You've got your visitors, who they are, where they're coming from, the traffic sources. So whether or not they're coming from AdWords or referred links or email links or banners elsewhere on sites or links from news articles, we're able to track every single type of link. And in fact, we've seen some people using billboards successfully by using, you know, a subdomain or a subdirectory or a different domain to record the traffic. They can understand how outside advertising works. Content, so actually what pages are being seen. Goals, which we'll talk about in a minute. And e-commerce if enabled. So if you're selling things on your website and you're using AdWords to advertise, we can give you a breakdown of the return on investment for each of your keywords. So you can see you spent, you know, $100 on this keyword over a month, but actually the sales off that keyword were $1,000. So there's no reason why you wouldn't want to keep investing in that. And you'll also find that there are keywords where you've spent, you know, $10, $20, $100 and you've made no sales. And that'll help you optimize by switching off the keywords that don't perform. Yep, okay, you've seen this, seen this, seen this, seen this, seen this. This is really, really interesting. So I'm going to stop for a second here. There's something called a funnel for most purchase processes. I'm going to steal 5 minutes of your presentation, isn't it, if that's okay? 5 minutes of your time, cool. So normally you'd come to a website, you'd go to product information, you know, you'd be looking at, I don't know, buying an orange t-shirt. You'd go to the shopping cart, you'd fill it in, you'd check out, so you'd plug in your details and you'd have a thank you page. And it doesn't have to be buying something. The goal of your website might be to download a file or download a PDF or view a particular page or sign up for a newsletter. And that's fine. You can consider that a goal too, but there's still going to be a funnel. There's still going to be a few steps to get people to engage with that. So you can measure it this way. And what we'll do is generate you a report like this. Don't worry that you can't read it at the back. I can't read it at the front. But it's more showing you this funnel process. So on the left here, for each stage, so view product categories, you've got the pages that people are arriving from. So which sections of the site they're going through to. And hopefully, they drop through here. So you can see here, 43% of the people who came from product categories went through to viewing a product. But about 5,000 left to go somewhere else. And if you're looking at your own account, you'll actually be able to read these URLs, and you'll be able to see where they're leaving and why. And again, once they viewed the product, how many went to the shopping cart? Well, actually, a very small percentage only went through here. 2%, you can see here. And so 12,000 people clicked away somewhere else. Why did they click away? It's really tough to know right now. But if you install analytics, you can find this information out. There was a customer in Spain who had a 3-column design on a website. On the left-hand side was the navigation. In the middle was the content. And on the right-hand side, they had special offers and latest news. And they had a style for their website. Every button on the website was red with white text. You know, just standard styling. That's what they liked. They sold flights. And so they had people clicking through and buying flights and getting all the way through the process, and loads of people bailing at the last stage. They were just kind of not completing, and they couldn't work out why. And so they installed analytics and set up the funnel, and they found out that on the right-hand navigation bar, there was a red box right next to the purchase button, and people were clicking that instead because they were confused. And they increased their conversions 25% simply by removing the right-hand bar when people were actually in the purchase cycle. And so people weren't getting confused. And sometimes, I'm not saying everyone's going to be able to do that as easily, but sometimes it really is the simple things that can make a huge difference. And if you're not monitoring them, you'll never, ever know. You can have a look at navigation. We've had a look at all this. As I mentioned earlier, you can get information from any source online. Anything that can provide a click can be tracked and measured effectively. And you don't even have to set this up. A lot of the time, we'll be able to work it out for you. And again, this is free. So if you're not measuring traffic to your website or you're paying a lot of money to do it, install this. Don't replace what you've got, but run it alongside it and just verify that the results tally. And if you've got nothing at all, then you've got nothing to lose by putting this on. And it's very important to note, most people in the company, me included, won't have access to your data unless you explicitly grant them a login. And will never aggregate your data, blend it with anyone else, or report it unless you explicitly opt in. You've got to go and physically tick a box that says, aggregate my data. And even then, no one will know that it's you because you'll be aggregated with thousands of other people. But your data is secure within Google. There are maybe 10 engineers who have unlimited access, and it's all gobbledygook to them anyway because it's just kind of numbers and crosses and IDs. It's only when it gets generated into front-end reports that it becomes meaningful. You can also obviously analyze organic search too, so the natural search, the free stuff from Google. What's new? There's a whole bunch of new stuff that keeps coming out, but we don't have time to go through it, so you'll just have to trust me that it's all awesome. Okay, there we go. Website Optimizer. I've got about 3 minutes left, but this is another really important thing, so I'm going to rip through it. Basically, let's just tear ahead. You've got a website. Let's say you sell mountain bikes online. This is your original page, and you can test different pages to see what works. You know you've got a page that views the product. You know you've got a page that actually sells. But is your viewing product page actually working effectively? And how do you measure that? Well, we've got something called A/B testing in Website Optimizer. And again, this is free. And this allows you just to create 2 versions of the HTML page, run them side by side, tell us what you consider a conversion, so it might be a purchase, and we'll simply run the test against your users for you, and then let you know which was the best at converting. But it gets more complicated than that too. You can actually break down pages into individual sections. So imagine this is the page you've got. Instead of writing 15 different web pages, you just want to say, okay, I want to try 3 different pictures here, and I want to try 2 different types of copy. And so that's going to make 2 headlines, 3 images, 6 possible combinations. And you can get as big as you want here. You can have hundreds of different combinations in hundreds of sections if you want. It's going to take longer to get results, but you can. And what we'll do is run all those combinations randomly to the users that come in, measure whether or not they convert, and give you a report. And as soon as we have data to show you, we'll show you which combination performed the best. And obviously this is mocked up for the purposes of making it seem awesome, but we'll be able to show you which combination performed the best, and then basically provide you with a button to enable that forever going forward. And you can apply this as well to websites which have, this is how to set it up. There's help on there. Go look, search for Google Website Optimizer. Hopefully it'll be the first result. Click there, click help, and you'll be able to get all this stuff, or just download this presentation afterwards. This is Google Picasa. This is our image manipulation program. It's free again. You can download it and play with it if you want. But this is the download page. And we thought this was pretty good. What we assumed was that it's always better to describe user benefits than product features. So find, organize, and share your photos. Free offers are more desirable, so free downloads we thought would be a great hook. Showing how beautiful your product is, we thought that would be really powerful too. But we didn't know that we were right. So we used Website Optimizer, and we use it on a lot of our own products to test a few different things. We tried some different copy, we tried a different button versus a text link, and we tried no picture versus pictures. Do you know what? This is the one that, this is the original. This is the one that won. And actually, it got 30% more downloads for Picasa. And I don't care what you do. I don't care if you sell peanuts online. I don't care if you're a massive enterprise client. If your turnover is $10 a month or $10,000 a day, a 30% increase in conversions is nothing to be sniffed at. And you really can get these results from using this product. It just requires a little bit of time and experimentation. But you know what we did as soon as we'd finished that? We started testing again because we thought we could do better. And we haven't beaten it yet, but we're always trying, and we hope to soon. And it works the other way. These guys have, this is a stair supplies company. They decided that this was a better layout with the navigation bar visible immediately here and free shipping here. But they didn't know. But actually, the so-called improvements, once they ran the tests, dropped their sales by half. So they pretty quickly rolled back. Hopefully, we've done okay for time. Apologies that that was so rushed. But it will be on YouTube later. The presentations will be available to download, and I will be around all day if you want to ask me questions. With that said,